I have a lot to cover, a lot to give you, a lot to expose you to that maybe will help you on a day-to-day basis rewire your brain to get peace of mind, to create serenity, create calm, create a life where you don't have all this anxiety running your brain. How many people deal with anxiety of some sort? Put yes in the chat box if you deal with anxiety or fear of some capacity. Put yes in the chat box. Because I will tell you that we are living in a world today that is so lost in our emotions. And I've spent the better part now of almost 30 years almost saying even that words makes me sound old. But I'm not old. I'm young and fit and sexy. You can all say, yes, you are, Dr. T. Yes, you are. It's okay. We're gonna have some fun tonight. We're gonna be chill. We're gonna talk. We're gonna relax. We're gonna learn. We're gonna learn because ultimately my goal and my mission here tonight is to help you empower your life. I want you to know that. We're going to have some fun, but you're going to walk away with some tools. How many people would love to actually begin a process of rewiring their brain to actually tonight, actually do a process with me? I'm going to take you through a process to help you rewire. You're going to experience some of that tonight as well. You're also going to go through, and I'm going to have some help you get some clarity and understanding. Why do we get stuck? Why do we have these problems that are limiting our life from growing and building in our world? So we're going to go through that. Look, I've got some slides I'm going to go through. I'm a pretty informal guy in the way I like to present these webinars. We're going to have a chat, a conversation. I've got nothing to sell you. I'll tell you right now, if you're here looking for a big sale, I'm probably not going to give it to you. I'm going to disappoint you. But I will give you an opportunity if you're interested in learning how to work with me further. I'll give you an opportunity to talk to someone on my team to see if you're a good candidate for some of the stuff I do to help people rewire their brain. And if that's something you're interested in, great. If not, you'll be here, you'll learn, you'll get lots of value, and you'll walk away with at least a little bit more clarity and feeling of peace of mind with some clarity today. Is that okay with you? If that's okay, put yes in the chat box for me, okay? And I'm going to continue to ask you to put yes in the chat box for me because that's the best way I know to communicate with you. Now, there's about 80 of us who are going to be on this conversation right now, which is great. And the more people that turn on your cameras, it lets me know what you're doing, and it helps me um, help you to be able to get clarity in your life in your world so that you can actually so I know who I'm talking to. It's very, we live in a world of Zoom, but everyone just kind of sits behind something. So Michelle, thank you for turning your camera on. Rick, thank you for having your camera on. Um, Masri, Wiel, I don't know if I'm saying that right, my friend. Thank you for having your camera on as well. Carla, thanks for having your camera on. So is this can I share some slides here? So what we're going to cover today is rewired for peace of mind. What is peace of mind? It's such a term that, I got to be honest with you. Before I go into all these testimonies and all these people saying amazing things about me, I was on a YouTube conversation with one of these guys who wants to help build my YouTube channel and get me out to more people. And he says, "So you're Dr. Rewire?" He goes, "I've heard about you. I know what you do." He goes, "I know what you do. You help people make billions of dollars." He goes, "You're like the billionaire rewire guy, right?" And I'm like, he's a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid. He probably knows more about YouTube than I'll ever know, right? Michelle, he's one of these kids that knows all this technology stuff. And I said, actually, I do the exact opposite. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I work with a really successful people already. I already work with successful people, but I help them get peace of mind so that they actually can be comfortable and grateful for living in their own soul and living their own life." And he says, "Whoa, that's different." And he was taken back. He didn't know how to sell me after that because everyone's chasing something. Everyone wants more of something. I said, "I'm not giving you the one thing I'm giving you more of is actually less. I'm giving you more of peace of mind, which is causing you less stress. I'm giving you more calm and serenity in your life, which is actually but less." And he's like, "That's interesting." And I say that to you tonight because to me, peace of mind, at least my definition of it, you can say you agree with it or disagree with it. Peace of mind is knowing that you wake up in the morning and are comfortable in the world that you live in. And more importantly, the skin that you're in, so that you can be grateful for your life, so that you can live your life on your terms. I think that's what peace of mind looks like for me. And if you agree with that, put yes in the chat box because I can't tell you that I always had that. I had to work to get there. And I'm going to take you through my formula to get there, right? But even guys like Eric Worre, who's the number one guy in network marketing, Gary Brecka, who you heard from, John Burke, Dan Fleischman, right? Peace of mind is this place where you get to experience life from a whole different space. And in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to basically teach you how to get certified to give yourself peace of mind and help other people get peace of mind. How many people would love to learn, A, how to do it for yourself, but also at the same time to be able to do it for your family and your kids and your husband or your wife, to be able to give them a system and tools to be able to regulate their body, to give them peace of mind. Think about that for a second. How many people would love that? Put number one in the chat box if you'd love, love, love to be able to do that. I get it. I get it. This morning I was having a discussion with my daughter and she says, Dad, I'm really angry at you. And I said, tell me more. Within the first hour of my day, I was yelled at by four people. And I'm like, wow, this one's going to be a good one. This one's going to be a good one. And I'll tell you what was interesting, Jordan, is that I didn't let a single person take my calm and my serenity and my peace of mind. I didn't let anybody do it because I controlled my emotions. I controlled my state. Not because if you talked to me 5, 10, 15 years ago, I would have responded and got into an argument and a fight and literally rebutted and create chaos. How many people have realized that someone yells at you and you yell back as a defensive mechanism? Put number one in the chat box if you do that, right? Of course you do. That's our defensive mechanism. We do it. We naturally do it. I had my girlfriend / Amanda do it within the first 30 minutes of being awake, right? I also had my daughter doing it within the first 45 minutes. And everyone just kind of came at me this morning. And I was like, huh, this is interesting. And I said you had a choice. I literally thought about it and said, I have a choice. I can allow people to run my day today, or I can actually be Dr. Rewire and take control and have peace of mind in my own life and control it for myself. Because when you control your mind, you change everything. And I'll tell you the story how I got there. But the work that I've been able to do, as you see, is I've been featured all over these places, 100 million people to help them through COVID, to navigate stress and navigation of stress, to be able to create serenity in their life. I've written several books. There's my wow, look at me stuff. Okay, I'm really smart. I'm really cool. Great. Now you got my credibility. Let's understand what rewiring is. Let's take a step back. Because before I talk to you about what rewiring is, there's a lot of people that use this term of rewiring today. Would you agree? There's a lot of people who say, well, rewiring, I rewire the brain. You can, and it's a big buzzword that is out there. And I get it. And I like it because it's just helping me because there's only one Dr. Rewire, and that's me because I own the brand. I know that. So there's no one else who can be Dr. Rewire, right? Everyone's using it. I get it. But there's only one Dr. Rewire, Rick. I know it. And if there's someone else, you tell me because they're frauding me. And I'm going to put a cease and desist on that because I own the trademark to it. But rewiring for most people is thinking about neuroplasticity and building new nerves, which is cool. I get it, right? So this is a general term, neuroplasticity. If you don't know, it means making of new nerves and changing your nervous system, your brain. It's one of the greatest, I think, realizations and discoveries that we've had probably in the 21st century in the information age, that the brain is constantly molding and remolding and changing every single second of the day. And they used to believe that your brain stops growing at the age of 25 years old because once you're done with school, it's actually not a fact, right? Our brain will continue to mold, remold, have neuroplasticity to the day we die. I want you to understand that. So wherever you are in your life, if you're sitting and say, well, I'm 60 years old, Sonny, or I'm 22 years old, great. You have the ability to change and have neuroplasticity in the brain. Now, how that works is my definition of rewiring is a little bit different. Rewiring to me is a set of specific programs and specific patterns, specific processes that are designed to create neurologic, emotional organization to optimize the mind, the biology, and the soul for freedom. And a long time ago, I would stop talking about the soul, but I would sit and say that unless we talk about the soul, we're a key component of the conversation of health. Would you agree with that? Put yes in the chat box if you agree. Because a lot of times people think that soul is just religious. I don't know that it is. I think it's actually a great part of health to know that there's something else that's connected to us. And if we don't understand and use that energy source, now I'm not sitting here telling you soul is Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Christ, or nothing. I'm just saying that there's an energy source of what I'm going to call soul, or some authors in the past have defined as this term of the source of unconditional love. And I think the more that we tap into that space of that source of unconditional love, we allow our bodies to heal. And I've seen cases of Crohn's disease, chronic illnesses, cancers, tumors that you would sit and say, Dr. T, that is impossible to heal But when you get people to love themselves and they have peace of mind, automatically their body would heal. How many people would love to be able to heal your own body when you create calmness in your mind? If you would love that ability, I think it's super powerful. It's my greatest gift to me and to the world that I live in. See, but DNA rewiring is a little bit different. This is the realization that I've come through and the work that I've done to rewire to find that the brain exact DNA patterns that allows people to see who they are. Everybody's brain is unique. Think about this, right? And we all say everybody is unique, everybody's different. Then we can't treat everybody the same. Their brains can't work the same. We've got to function from a different space. And understanding that, Jerry, is how does your brain work is important because your brain is different than Lynn's brain. Your DNA is different than Lynn's brain, right? Now, I don't know either of you. I've never met either of you. You're just on a webinar here with this crazy, cool, sexy Indian doctor, and you're thinking, this guy knows my name. He's talking to me, right? And he is. And because we're all different, though. But it's not, we can't give each other the same information. We've got to look and realize that we're different. So if we understand this, tonight, really what I'm going to take you through is you'll learn how to do these things, right? You're going to learn how to quiet the mental noise, right? And if you are in saying I want that, just put W in the chat box, right? I'm giving you lots of letters because that's what I've been getting your fingers all over the keyboard here, right? Want that. And I'm saying quiet the mental noise. I get it. I totally get it. To break the stress patterns at the source. If you want that, put S. I want to break the stress patterns at the source. If you want to stay grounded under pressure, put G if you want to stay grounded under pressure, right? You want to create clarity when your mind feels overloaded, put M, right? If you want to create clarity in your mind, I should probably done C there. You want to use your brain's biology to generate peace, right? When I talk about peace of mind, and let me say this to you all, I'm not talking about peace of mind like we're just sitting on a tree and in meditating and this religious context. I want it through science. Here's why, because I want it reproducible. I'm not against religion by any capacity. Please understand, I'm all for it. But it's much more about how do we do this scientifically, reproducibly, again and again and again and again. Right, Gene? Think about that. If you can do this again and again and again, that's a pattern, right? That's the game that I like to play. Why? Because I want to do it for myself. To be able to shift into calm, controlled thinking on command. I tell you what, I could tell you story after story of crazy experiences in my life that I've been able to hold myself in a frame that's so grounded and centered that you would sit and say, how are you calm in the middle of the storm? You've all heard this before. You've all heard, and put yes in the chat box if you've heard this, right? The secret to life is to stay calm under in the eye of the storm. When the storm is going on around you, you have to stay calm. And I will tell you that the tools I've put together, the system that's put together, is that I can teach you how to do that. Because when you do that, you are in essence in control of your environment. The tornado's happening no matter what in your life. The mind is going out crazy as it is right now. But how do we govern that? How do we calm the mind? Right. And then what happens? You're saying a lot, Tanya, right there. And I'm happy to answer some. For those of you guys who are here and stay till the end, so we can. And those of you are saying some pretty wise things in there, and I'm happy to discuss at the end as well. So, and at the end, you're going to learn how to get certified and how to help yourself and others how to do rewiring and how to create peace of mind in this. Right. In my world, certification isn't about adding credentials. It's about becoming the facilitator people can go to trust to change their life at the root level. When someone gets certified in Rewire You, you're not just teaching tools, you're activating transformation that rewires the mind, the body, and alignment for freedom. That's what it comes down to, right? It's about freedom for that, right? So stay tuned to the end, and I'll show you how to work directly with me at the end. As I said, there's nothing here to sell you. I've got no big pitch for you. If you're interested at the end, you'll get a chance to talk to someone on my team for 10 minutes to sit and say, hey, look, I'd love to talk with you. In fact, you know what we're going to do, team? I want you to just, as periodically, I want you to just book a call with someone on the team as we're continuing the conversation. So you have to wait till the end. If you're interested and say, look, I got to learn from this guy. I got to talk to this crazy Indian doctor and get my brain right, then you can just click at some point to schedule a call in there. So we can just put that in there as it progresses, Amanda, through the night, okay, through the conversation. So there's 5 keys in this to create peace of mind. This is what I want you to explain. There's 5 keys. When I talk about certification, I have 3 levels. And I'm just going to say this and I'm going to come off of this. Level 1 is about learning to rewire yourself so that you understand how to do it, how to create certainty for yourself. And then you do that with other people. Level 2 is about partnering with me and building a business. I have a mission, at least my first part of my mission, is to have 250 Rewire coaches and partners making $250,000 a year. That's my mission. I'm doing that within the next 2 years. If you say, hey, look, I want to be a part of that, then your conversation is about level two. Level three is about becoming a Dr. Rewire certified master, and no one is even close to that credential. So I don't even want to talk about that right now. So if you're looking at it and saying, I want to work on me, great. I love that. I want you to think about this and listen to this whole conversation with respect to you. If you sit and say, I'd love to learn and how to help others, I want you to think and listen to this conversation that we're about to have about helping other people. Now, in the chat box, if you're about, if you want to work on yourself, just put number one down. If you want to work on other people, put the number two down. So I know who's in there in the conversation so I can help orient the conversation. I see a lot of ones right now, which is great. I love that. So I'm saying one and two. Okay, great. Fantastic. Jenny, three is not even open anyway. So you're definitely, I love the way you're thinking, but it's not even open anyway, right? Both. Tanya says I'm both. I'm a coach already. Fantastic. So let's talk. Okay. Uh, okay. So when we look at this, when we look at the brain, come on. I like to sit and say this. We have four problems when it comes to the brain right now in the body. And four major problems are number one is that we have really people are sick in body. Our society is completely sick in the body. Would you agree? Put yes in the chat box if you agree. Number two, are fractured in mind. Fractured in mind. Number three is we're obsessed with money. And I like to just say more. We're obsessed with more. More, more, more. The more we have, people have mistaken the word abundance for more. It's just not true. And four is we're lost in meaning. The reason you don't have peace of mind is one of these four reasons. One of these four reasons is running your brain and running your life at this very moment. And I don't know which one it is, and you don't know. Maybe you know. I don't know which one it is, but one of these is running your life. Now, when we look at this, do you have to understand that there's five components in order to understand how the brain works? The first thing you have to understand is look at least is your emotions. So let's talk about what emotions are. Emotions are the ability to understand how you process the world. Your emotions, if I'm to draw this out, are actually in the brain. They're in the amygdala part here, the prefrontal cortex, and the actual uh, hypothalamus there. This area here is known as the amygdala. And the amygdala in itself, that's the place that controls emotions like fear and anxiety. And if any of these sound familiar in any way, put yes in the chat box. Fear, anxiety, jealousy, resentment, guilt, shame, frustration, um, anger, all of these things live in the amygdala. And this area of the amygdala is a part of the brain, if I use Paul MacLean's model of the brain, is a part of the brain that creates people to have, let's call it a stress, what people call stress response. Now, stress is not a bad thing by any means. Stress is a normal response. And these emotions, what I call emitted ions, and I can't get into more of that right now, but understand that emitted ions are fragments of the brain. And fragments is causing you these problems. Now, the problem with these emotions, when I said this, number one is fear. Number two is anxiety. These two suckers are basically running and robbing your brain of any sort of calmness. Now, I'll give you what happens in this, right? Let me come off this. So when your brain is running and having fear and anxiety, you can sit and tell me everything you want to, but I'll tell you what's happening with your body. Your heart rate is up, your blood pressure is up, your cortisol is high. You can't not gain weight, so you're going to gain weight. Ladies, you're going to have these armpits, or not these armpits, these triceps that flab. You know what I'm talking about, gentlemen. You're going to have that belly. You're like, oh, I'm trying to. Why am I holding on to this belly? Your C-reactive protein stays high. Absolutely correct. And this is an inflammatory response. that's happening in your body. Now, what most people don't realize with this, my friends, is that when you are inflamed, when your body is in stress, you create illnesses. Now, you're going to go to the doctor right now and you're going to sit and say, Doctor, I've got headaches. I've got migraines. I've got blood pressure. I had a guy on a call with me yesterday. He said he has high blood pressure. I said, Do you understand high blood pressure? And he says, No, the doctor just says, does this pumping thing and they check my blood pressure and they say that it's high. Okay, why? They don't know why. They just say you have fat in the arteries, which is not true. Then they say that you have cholesterol is the issue, which is not true. What they tell you, I said, here's the thing I need you to understand. I said, what is your emotional level and your stress level? And he's like, it's really high. I said, have you ever calmed your mind to create peace of mind with it? Have you ever rewired your brain to create a system scientifically to be able to create calmness in your brain? And he says, no. I said, look, you need to understand one of two things here. Your nervous system is working on two sides. You have something called the sympathetic nervous system, right? Your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system controls what's called your fight and flight nervous system. This is the part of your system that's stressed. This is the part, if you don't have peace of mind, you don't have. This is the sympathetic, part is very active and overwhelmed. Now, you also have the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the part of the nervous system that is causing your brain to and your body to relax, right? So hopefully at night, your body calms down and you rest and you relax and you're like, oh, so nice. I get to go to sleep. But many of you don't. Many of you sit and say, I can't sleep. My brain is just working all the time. I can't relax. And I get up between 2 and 4 in the morning. And I don't know what happens, doc. It must be because of my old age. Bullshit. None of that is true. Not true at all. It's because your nervous system is over amped. And fear and anxiety are running the show. And the sympathetic nervous system is running the show. I'll give you an example. I had a client one time, 82 years old. He's 82 years old. And he says, all I want to do is be able to sleep. He says, I've done all the meditation. I lived with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. How many people know who Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is, right? From he created the Art of Living Foundation in Iowa, taught the world about meditation in the West here. And he said, I've done all that stuff. I've learned how to calm my brain. I've meditated for years. I said, yeah, but you haven't rewired it. I said, because most people are looking at meditation as an escape. Rewiring is not an escape, right? Self-regulation, these terms are very important, but how do you get there? These are all buzzwords, people, self-regulation, mindset. I get it. How do you get there? And the key is integration. So I said, okay, we're going to rewire the brain. And he says, if you can rewire the brain and get me to sleep at night, he goes, you will be my favorite person on the planet. And I said, he's like, I've been dealing with this for 50 years. I'm 82 years old, son. And I said, I got it. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. We'll see what happens. We rewired him. 3 weeks later, we got a letter from him and his wife, both saying for the first time in 50 years, he's been sleeping 7 hours a night. Because when you integrate the brain, you create something that, my friends, all these buzzwords are great, but there's something in the brain called coherence that needs to be understood. If your brain is not coherent, that means it's creating emotions. Coherence is a term in physics which means organized. That's it. It means organized. So when your brain is organized, your emotions are organized. How do most people organize their emotions? Tell me how you organize your emotions. Put in the chat box. How do you organize your emotions? Tell me how you do it. I'll tell you how you do it. You yell at your husband or your wife. You talk to a friend. You meditate and you separate yourself from it, or you get super angry, or if you do what most people do, they find some sort of dopamine, some drug, some cigarette, some nicotine, some alcohol, sex. All of these things become part of your life. And now it's like you've never organized your emotions. That's why it's important to understand this. If emotions aren't organized, you in essence aren't coherent. Staying busy is not organizing. Staying busy, I think it's Susan who said that, is just not addressing. So it doesn't go anywhere. And what happens is this, is a lot of people have gone to different programs and seminars and things like that. And I see them all the time. They come into my world and they say, Dr. T, I've done programs. I've studied. I got it. It's great. I'm glad. But when you actually rewire the brain, you walk away feeling grounded. You walk away feeling centered. Walk away to that you're in a state of coherent organization, and that's when you create peace of mind. And most people are doing it by disassociating rather than integrating. That's the difference in this work. If this is making sense, put yes in the chat box. If you're glad you showed up, put yes in the chat box. If you think I'm a jerk, put no in the chat box. It's a trick question. It's a trick question. Making sure you're paying attention here. Okay. But no, you're supposed to, you said no, you think I'm a jerk. I saw that. You think I didn't see that? Okay. So let's keep going. So when you look at this, how do we understand our emotional state? Most people are looking at health and longevity and biohacking from this space of physical and exercise and diet. And when most people look at staying healthy, how do you live a long time? How do you live and get healthy? How do you live and sustain that health? I'll tell you the number one thing that it is. Number one thing that you need to do. I don't care if you exercise. I don't care if you diet. I don't care if you eat like shit. I don't care if you, I'll tell you what it is. The one thing you have to do is manage your stress. They did a study. They just released it, I think 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. Chronic stress, chronic long-term sympathetic stress is the number one cause of illness and decreases longevity. More than diet, more than cholesterol, more than your weight training exercise, and more than cardiovascular exercise, chronic stress. That's interesting. That's interesting. So peace of mind is the number one thing to do in order to create longevity. Huh, maybe that guy Deepak Chopra is onto something that we don't know about. Maybe he knew something that we didn't know. Maybe he's in there, right? And so if you think about it, how do we get there? And this is the formula that I had to put together. And I'm going to share it with you guys and to understand the model at least as we go through this. That's great. You get 7 hours of sleep. That's fantastic. I get 8 hours of sleep, 2 to 2.5 hours of REM sleep a night, every night, regardless if I get yelled at or not. First step you got to do is decode. Now, when you decode, this is understanding A, from your DNA perspective, what is the real cause of the problem? Now, I'm not going to go heavy into decoding your DNA right now, but what I can tell you is this, is after doing this work, everybody's DNA is different. And your DNA is giving you a specific pattern around your sympathetic nervous system. And your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, they're working together. However, the problem is that if your nervous system is built for a state where your mom and dad came together and it didn't let the sympathetic nervous system calm down, you are naturally going to be stressed and cause a lack of sleep in your body. If your nervous system doesn't shut off at night, then you're also going to create stress in your body. Now, they'll tell you have high blood pressure, blood sugar problems, insomnia, cortisol issues, everything. You'll do your blood work and everything after that will say, oh, you have these problems. Yes, but why? It's because your sympathetic nervous system was on fire. Yes, why? Because you can't manage your emotions. Okay, but why? This is what I did. This is what I realized after 700,000 people and rewiring them. What I realized is that what if, here's the key, what if your parents got together and they didn't give you the DNA to make certain neurotransmitters that controls the pattern of your nervous system? And you know what? Your brain and your body is going to be overactively stressed. And so you're going to try and create peace of mind, but my friend, you can't. Because the way the code was given to you, you're going to be hyperactive. And then we live in an environment with all these lights all the time, all this technology all the time, and your brain doesn't shut off. But yes, in the chat box, if that makes sense to you. Okay. Completely. So if it doesn't shut off, it's like, what do? You have to understand how to shut it off. So first thing we got to do is decode. Second thing, you got to rewire. Okay. You got to rewire. And third is you have to embody. Embodiment is so important. Today we've separated ourselves from our body. We process everything from our brain and we say we know everything. I don't want you to know anything. I want you to be stupid. I want you to know nothing, but I want you to integrate the mind and the body because the more you think you know, the less you know. But the body's trying to give you feedback. The body's trying to give you awareness. And the key to our health, I promise you, the key to our health will not be more intellect. The key to our health will be the integration of the mind and the body. Because what's going on here is controlled by this vagus nerve that comes down your neck that goes into your organs. And if that vagus nerve can't talk to that heart, you're going to create heart disease. If that vagus nerve can't talk to the blood, the pancreas, you're going to have blood sugar problems and insulin problems. If the vagus nerve doesn't talk to the digestive system, you're going to be constipated. Wait a minute. Everything in our brain is affecting everything in our body. And if we're separating the two, we're making a huge mistake in taking care of our health. That's why when we talk about peace of mind, I'd love for you to sit and walk away from this conversation and say, you know what? I've I've got to own my body. Here's the thing I want you to understand. You have to know your body and you have to know your emotions because every single nerve in the brain, before I talk about neuroplasticity, I'm going to come off of the screen. I'm going to talk about this, make sure you guys hear this clearly. Every single nerve in the brain that has to change, even for you, Damien, even for you, has to have an emotional component. It has to go through the hypothalamus and hippocampus. You can't have neuroplasticity without hippocampal activity, which means that emotions are interacted. So you can sit and say, it doesn't bother me today, or put it away. It doesn't bother me that 10 years ago I got divorced. It doesn't bother me that I lost a bunch of money. It doesn't bother me that I was yelled at as a kid. Bullshit. Completely bullshit. I disagree with you 1,000%. It's running your nervous system today and it's causing triggers in your body. If I said bullshit and someone got triggered, that was because you have a belief in your system. And the whole system gets catalyzed because of that. So unless you're actually functioning properly and adapting to life, your nervous system is run on an old pattern. And this pattern is letting you know that it's old based on the signs and symptoms it's trying to tell you. Okay. So when you have this pattern, you have to decode these areas. You have to decode three parts of the brain here. One is your DNA. Second is your values. And third is your beliefs. You have a set of beliefs, and you've all heard this before. You've all heard this idea that you change your beliefs, you change your life. Wow, congratulations, it's revolutionary. I used to be a quote unquote speaker in the personal development space, and I would help people rewire their brains to make more money. How many people would love to make more money? Put yes in the chat box. Yeah, I know. Everyone's like, I want to make more money. I want to make more money. I'll tell you, what if I told you that that's the reason that you don't make more money? Interesting. I'll just let you marinate on that. But I sat and I was backstage with all these guys and all these people about rewire, about their brain and success gurus and everybody. You would know these names if you've been around this, right? And And what happened is that I was backstage. I'm like, guys, you guys need to help me. You don't understand. I'm going through a brutal divorce and I'm not making any money. And I don't, I need to change the way that I think. I need to figure out how to make money. And I was one of those guys that did lots of work. I did all the work that was involved. And and I would do the work that was needed. I'd make 200 phone calls. It wasn't about hard work, right? And so I would make 200 phone calls a day. I was making the sales calls. I was doing everything that was needed to do, but I wasn't making anything click. And so one of the guys says to me, he says, well, you got to change your beliefs. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock, thanks. At least that's what I said in my head, right? I didn't say it out loud to him. I said it in my head. I'm like, well, no shit, thanks. I appreciate the useless information you just gave me because I've heard this only 1,005,000 times. And so he says, I said, okay, that's great. But how do I actually change my beliefs? Well, he says, well, you've got to do, you got to read lots of books. You got to do lots of coaching. You've got to, and that's what's going to change your beliefs. And I said, well, I don't know about that. And then he says, well, I said, well, how do I know what my beliefs are? And he says, well, you look at your environment and those are your beliefs. And I thought that was the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard. I said, bullshit. My bullshit meter went off. I said, that doesn't make any sense to me because I'm a doctor and someone can walk into my practice and they could have low back pain And the cause of the low back pain could be a herniated disc, spondylolisthesis, spondylolysis, spondylitic spondylolisthesis, a tumor, a fracture, a cancer. Could be a million different, 175 different things. I counted, I looked it up, 175 different things that could be there, right? And when I saw that, I was like, oh, these guys don't know how the hell to do this. They don't know what this means. So I remember going home that night and staying up till at least 2:30 in the morning. And at this point in my life, I was 50 pounds overweight. I smoked cigarettes. I drank like a fish. And everything that you would think that a healthy doctor should do, I did. I ate Chick-fil-A. I drank Coke. I did everything healthy that you're supposed to do. And I remember that night I was up and I asked myself, and I was like, why is this happening? And I said, I have to figure out the anatomy of this belief because if I don't figure it out, no one's going to. And so I did. I did that night. I stayed up and I figured out, and I found this place, the anatomy of the belief. Now, some of you have heard this before, but it was in the posterior, or excuse me, it was in the uh, pulvinar region of the hypothalamus that led me down to the anterior portion of the pituitary, which led me to the anterior portion of the adrenal gland. And I realized there's a thing called the HPA axis that's controlling the whole system. And it's controlling the sympathetic nervous system, and our body's regulated by it. You don't need to know any of that stuff. I just want you to know that I figured that out that night. And I said, okay, I've got to decode and understand what my beliefs really are because nobody told me what they actually were. Nobody told me what they were. So I did a process called the belief inventory. And the belief inventory took me about 5 minutes, 2, 3 minutes. And I did it that night. And I pulled out and I discovered that I had a belief around money that I could have love or money, but not both. Now, some of you have heard that before, but you haven't integrated that because the key lesson in that belief was that if I had a resentment towards money and it was going to cause me more pain, would I bring it into my life? Put yes or no in the chat box. Because the brain is built on survival. It's not built on abundance. I wouldn't bring it into my life. If I perceive money cause me more pain, then I wouldn't bring it into my life. So for many of you, the things that you say you want is nothing more than a compensation. The belief wasn't the actual problem. The belief was actually the symptom. The belief was the symptom to the problem. And so I got that night. And I said, the belief is the symptom. And so the better part of me that night, I rewired myself. I figured out what I was doing in rewiring. And then the next day, I created a deal for $180,000. 2 days later, I continue rewiring. I make myself another $110,000. Now, Susan's like, I want that. I can see it. She's like, I want that. She's focused. 3 days later, I make another $80,000. Now, the money didn't come in. I made these deals. But here's the thing I want you guys to understand is that I've been working for 9 months, maybe 10 months at the time, every day doing, and nothing, 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 nothing. And then I rewire my brain and things start to happen. So here's the key I want you to get. First time, coincidence. Would you agree? Second time, curiosity. How did that happen? Third time, it's a pattern. And then I realized that I was onto something bigger than I even realized at that time. So I spent the better part of the next year, two of my life rewiring everything in my brain and building it and building it and rebuilding it so that I can create the state of peace of mind. Because only when I did that was I able to ground myself, right? And so if I show you like some of these results, what happens when people rewire their brain, it's like when you study an EEG, they show you that it decreases your brain age because we're actually helping the body heal. When you actually I don't want to show the video. I'm gonna skip the video. What they said that you can't change brain age. What we realized is that in one day I was able to change the average brain age for 102 people, 16 years. Now, you put in the chat box, how many people think that they would love to have a younger brain? And if they had a younger brain, would they be functioning better and would they live longer? Put yes in the chat box if you agree with me. Because the answer is 100%. That's my Texan for you. 100%. No doubt about it. An Indian guy speaking in a Texas accent. That's how it works. It would 100%. There's no question. Right. So this is my brain age. Right. 45, I'm 29 years old. They said, how on earth do you have a brain age of 29 years old? I said, I don't know. But I will tell you, I said, I do know. It's because I rewire my brain and I master my emotions. And they said, how do you do that? And I said, well, it's a whole process. Sorry, Carla, you're from Texas, my bad. But the what I realize is that the more emotional congruence you have in your brain, the better, the healthier the brain. It's that simple, right? It's the healthier the brain. What we realize is this: as I started realizing this energy field is around us, and when we start rewiring the brain around this energy field is some would call an auric field or an electromagnetic frequency that's around us. What we found is that 48 joules, this is the energy that a person's radiating. In one day, after I rewire them, their field goes up and gives you 57 joules of energy. Think about that for a second, okay? That's almost a, shall we say, a 20% increase. Do you think this person is healthier at level 2 versus level 1? At 57 joules. If you think that person is healthier, put yes in the chat box because they are. They are. There's no question they are. They have more energy to draw from. They have more energy to draw from. Here's this person went from 38 joules to 53 joules. Like how many breaks they have in their system, right? In their energy field. And this person went from 34 joules to 52 joules. One day. One day. I want you guys to understand this. Rewiring is not this takes 100 years. You've all done different things. You've all done stress management. You've all done therapy. You've all done seminars and walked on different things and think like, okay, let me get motivated. And it doesn't do anything. Now, what do? We have to create systems in this. This person went from 40 to 57. This person went from 30 to 61. I want you to understand. Look at this guy, the breaks in this guy. This guy's diabetic, peripheral neuropathy, brain cognition, cognitive dysfunction, memory loss, hearing loss in one day. Look at his energy, doubled his energy. Do you think this guy is a healthier person because of this? You better believe it. 100%. 100%. So the average frequency when you rewire the brain goes up 34%. That's what we found. The brain goes up 34% with this, right? Like Tina, she basically got clarity in her life and she left a bad business and created multiple seven-figure clients because of this. Here's all the testimonies in there. A couple months ago, I was on stage with Dave Asprey and Damon John is a client of mine and a friend and a client. And when I rewired his brain, he's like, whatever you're doing is changing the way I fundamentally think about my life and my business and the way that I run my life. Now, that's a guy who's worth over $300 million. So built a $6 billion company. That's pretty. I'll take that testimony all day long. Jerry, would you take that testimony all day long? Right? I would too. I would too. So when you create alignment, it creates flow. Misalignment creates struggle. So let's go through this. How many people are ready to do some rewiring? Put yes in the chat box if you're ready to rewire. Ben's like, I'm ready. All right. Very good. So we're going to run through a process. In this conversation we're about to have, it's very simple. In this conversation, we are going to do part of the decode process. And we're going to decode your beliefs. Now, I'm going to take you through the same process that I did that night to figure out one of my beliefs. Now, I'm going to use something that's common to all of us in this discussion. And that commonality, let's say, is becoming a rewired coach, all right? A level 1 rewired coach to be able to rewire yourself on anger, frustration, anxiety, fear, shame, guilt, limiting belief, self-sabotage. Okay, that's level 1 rewiring. Okay, I'm going to run you through an exercise on becoming a level 1 coach. Here's how it works. I'm going to put a certain amount of time on the clock, and on that time, we're going to discuss becoming a level 1 rewire coach. And in becoming a level rewire coach, you're going to rewire yourself in the process. What I want you to do is I'm going to put 45 seconds on the clock. And I want you to write down literally everything that comes into your brain. Don't judge it. Don't say, well, that's not right. That's not good. That's just write whatever comes into your brain. And it doesn't matter what you think. If it's good or bad, doesn't matter. Just write it down. Because I want you to have clarity on what It is. Okay, just write it down. So I'm gonna put 45 seconds on the clock, and we're gonna say becoming a level one certified coach to rewire yourself. And we're gonna start exactly now. Write everything that comes into your brain. Get a pen and paper, write down everything that comes into your brain. Don't stop. Don't stop. Keep writing. Keep writing. Whatever's coming into your brain, write, write, write. Now, some of you are passively listening. Don't just passively listen. Do the work here. Well, Janine, I'm giving you a tool to get your brain better. It's not going to happen accidentally. You've got to do the work behind it. Whatever's coming into your brain, okay, stop now. Okay, very good. Now you've written down a bunch of things there. Now I want you to write down next to it, if you, whatever you wrote down on each thing, if you perceive something to be positive, I want you to put a check mark. If you put down something as an X, I want you to, or if you perceive something negative, pardon me, I want you to put an X next to it. Okay. Every single thing you wrote down, if you think this was a positive thing, I want you to put a check mark. If you think it's a negative thing, put an X. I'll give you about 10 seconds or 15 seconds to go through it. Shouldn't take you that long. Okay, very good. Now, how many people had more positives than negatives? If you put more positives, say number one. If you had more negatives, put the number two down. Okay. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think, do you think if you have more positives, that you are more likely to move towards healing your brain and creating peace of mind? Yes. If you put more negatives, you find resistance in that. And you're going to push it away. Now, the reason this is important is because you have the ability to change that. How many people would love to be able to rewire their brain from fear and anxiety in this? Your beliefs right now just gave it to you. Or to be able to rewire your brain around resentment or guilt, or to remove the limiting beliefs, or to be able to remove the self sabotage. That's what this process begins to do. That's what's important to understand, right? Now, this is obviously an introduction to this, but what I want you to see here is that if your brain is stuck, you now have to rewire it. You have to decode it. And then there's five primary emotions I want you to think about. One is resentment. Second is guilt, shame, pride, and infatuation. These need to be rewired to lead us to embodiment. Embodiment is when your nervous system is synthesized. When your nervous system is synthesized, you're not positive, you're not negative. You have peace of mind in the middle. When you have calmness in the middle, you're centered, right? When you have calmness in the middle, your body is centered in that. Centered is where you have peace of mind. You don't have peace of mind in happiness or sadness. You have peace of mind when you have calmness that's structured there. So, what I want you guys to get and understand is that how do you do this? What do you need to do to be able to do this? Yeah, it's a form of homeostasis. It's an emotional homeostasis, David. That's correct. Now, what I want you to understand and look at and think about this for yourself is okay, life is happening every single day to myself, and I am literally have to figure out how to get my brain to a state of homeostasis. Because if I want my body to be at homeostasis, I better get my brain to homeostasis. If the brain isn't in homeostasis, I create chaos. See, the thing that you have to realize is that there's three parts of this system that you have to know how to do. And let me go through those with you. The three parts of this system, oops, is to understand that if you draw a triangle, you have to know the what. You have to know what it is. Second part of it is you have to look at it and say, how do I analyze it? How do I rewire it? The third part of that is when you look at it, is how do I have a practice to do it? What is it? How do I do it? How do I practice it? Now, I don't want to sit here and tell you that, look, I can take it, I can and take people and rewire them in minutes and be able to change and remove things. But what I'm trying to share with you is that it's a system and a science. Because if you understand how to rewire your brain, if you understand how to heal your brain, you create duplicity in your life, you can create the calm in your life, and you can create centered in that. How many people at this point, actually just getting some clarity, had some realizations in doing that belief inventory exercise? Put yes in the chat because you've had some realizations in doing so. Good. That's one of my 132 techniques that I use. One of my 132 techniques. Do you think that if you learned a few more, your world would be different? There's no question. What I want you to do is look, if right now you've been sitting here for this entire time with me and you're like, man, there's more to this puzzle. How many people feel that there's more to this puzzle that they'd love to be able to learn? And there is. There's three pieces of this puzzle you need to know. Number one, you need to know who, what it is. You need to know how to rewire. Number two, you need to know what anxiety is. You need to know what fear is. Number two, you need to know how to do it to yourself. You have to rewire you first. That's why it's called Rewire You. And number three, then you have to practice on others to be able to rewire others. When you do that, you do all three, then what happens is your nervous system begins to organize, collaborate. And the cool thing about this that I want you to get is that you can do this on whim. You can now take any situation at any point in your life and be able to do it. Now, you can turn it into a business, you can apply it into business, whatever you want to do. It doesn't make a difference to me how you want to do it. Why can't I move this thing? And you can do this for yourself with it. I say this to you because I want you to realize something. Unless you do something different, that's not magically going away. I will tell you the biggest problem we're about to have in this world, you can mark my words, call it foreshadowing, call it thought leadership, whatever you want. The biggest problem we're about to have in this world is emotional disconnection. With the advent of AI, people's loss of meaning and emotion dysregulation is about to go on a skyrocket. It is because people don't know how to. They won't have self connection. They won't have people around to be able to connect to. AI gives you lots of information. It won't help you integrate the information. So, with that being said, right, if you're already in the medical field, that's fantastic. Great. Learn how to do it. Learn how to do it. I have lots of medical doctors and physicians who are learning how to do this. This is on the forefront of what's being done. I literally got two emails today from people who are like, I want to learn how to do this because this could change and revolutionize the entire world. It will. Well, those who want it, right? It's a modality, it's a system. I like to think about it as that what if you knew how to think? Because let me ask you, who taught you how to think? Nobody. Nobody taught you how to think. You reacted and responded how to think. When you look at gaining peace of mind, I like to sit and say, I'm not the richest guy on the planet. I'm not, nor will I ever be. Nor will I ever be the Jeff Bezos of tomorrow. I have no interest in that. But I am one wealthy SOB because I can get peace of mind like that. Like that. No matter what's going on in my world, I can regulate my life to get peace of mind and stability, right? At whim. And I say that to you because there's a lot of you on this call who have been clients of mine, done work with me in the past, and know this to be true. And if you want to share something, raise your hand, and I'll be happy to, just call on you, and you can keep and you can share kind of your experience and what it's like to rewire. But right now, for like we are now creating these certifications to be able to certified partners and that because we're looking for people who want to actually help me take this work to the world. This is not about just we're looking for people to take it to the world and see if I can help you. But you got to be qualified. I had a call yesterday with a lady. True story. She gets on the call with me, and I said, "Look, okay, what's up?" And she's cold. She's standoffish. She's defensive. Um, I spent about 10 minutes talking. She's like, "I've done lots of work, done lots of work," and I said, "That's great. I'm glad you've done lots of work. How can I help you?" And she's like, "Why now?" I said, "Why now?" She's like, "Because I've done lots of work and I need it." And I said, "Look, just because you need it doesn't mean I have to help you." And I want you to realize that I don't have to help anybody. I don't have to do anything. I'm not obliged to do anything. I said, I'm helping you. And if you want my help, let's talk. I said, but right now you're really being standoffish and defensive, and I can't help you in that capacity. And she starts telling me about her relationship and the stories she's gone through. 71 years old, this lady, and I didn't understand how she was on my call, but what I realized, and I said to her, truthfully, I said, you're not angry, you're not defensive. What you are is hurt. And I kid you not, 71-year-old woman, African American lady, just dropped. Her glasses fell, she started crying. And she says to me, she goes, I am very hurt. And it was probably one of the very unique moment in my life. And as I was talking to her, I said, I get it. The world didn't work out the way that you had expected it to. And she said, yeah, it didn't. And you're hurt and you're angry and you're scared. I said, that's all your sympathetic nervous system talking. That's your past talking to you. That's not your future talking to you. That's your past running the story. I said, you can change that. 3 minutes later, quote unquote, quote unquote, she says to me, she said, I have spent $75,000 therapy, programs, motivation, coaching, everything. She goes, I have more peace in my heart after these 3 minutes when you called me out than I've had in anything I've ever done in my life. And she said, how do I do this all the time? I said, you could live there. You could live there. You can coherent. You could get coherent there. For sure you can. And I'm not preaching from an ivory tower. Like if you, this is how you can live. You can get there. There's a system, there's a science. And I'm not preaching from an ivory tower thinking, oh, it's just, I had to do it for myself. I was an angry, pissed off kid. And when I realized that when you can get peace of mind, it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how broke you are. Everyone wants the same freaking thing. They want they want to be calm. They want their body and brain. They want the same thing. Rich people want the same thing. I have lots of billionaire clients. One of my clients is worth almost $800 million, almost a billionaire. He could buy my world, my business, a million times over. And he says, you're the guy who gives me peace of mind. Because I don't know how you do it. True story. I have a young athlete. I'm going to read it to you. She sent me this today. Um, this is really inspiring. 18-year-old girl. I actually meant to text you. Thank you so much for reaching out. You seriously don't know how much you've helped me. It's actually crazy. I had a situation yesterday that normally I wouldn't have handled very well, but after our talk, I was able to see what happened and realized and went over it. So thank you. You've helped me so much. I really appreciate. My mindset is definitely the main thing I work on, even more than my my training, my sport, or anything like that. I'm super grateful. That's what the future needs. I want to help you do that. I want to help you do that. So, with that being said, I'm going to shut up and allow you to schedule your calls, talk to my team, but I'm happy to take any questions you guys may have. Usually when I do that, people get scared to ask questions, or I would sit and say, one of my mentors taught me a long time ago. He said, if you get a chance to ask a question from somebody that knows more about something than you do, you ask it. So I would take the opportunity. Well,
Okay.
I hope this has been has this been valuable for everybody?
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope that you guys can see the power of the work we're doing. Look, my objective is simple. I want to help you heal and live and ultimately just a beautiful life. Peace of mind is the path to healing. The peace of mind is the path to governing your life. Peace of mind is it's a part of it's the key part of the process.